Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us at the under construction site for the Mary Helen Rogers Senior Center. Thank you to Cahill and the developers and all their supporters, and certainly the people that I had met last year, including Dennis Rogers from the family, that we were all here on that very rainy day last year where we kick-started this project, and with Reverend Fong and Reverend McCrae and all the other developers and the housing advocates. I'm here also with Supervisor and Board President David Chu, with certainly Supervisor Jane Kim and our newest Supervisor, Christina Alagi. Thank you for all being here. First of all, let me begin by saying that during the campaign for mayor and certainly post-campaign, there's been a very strong effort on our part to make sure that job creation and economic development, as I said in my speech inauguration, that becomes a priority for me and my administration. And I have a lot of support at the board for this as well. And part of that not only is when we talk about jobs and talk about the training and getting people involved at the early level of their education to get into the workforce and making sure that they see San Francisco as full of hope for them, but also we've got to take care of some of the other important elements of having a good, strong workforce, and that is housing. Housing not just for low income, although here that's what this is focused on. And that's why we have so many advocates that are here today, but they'll agree with me that workforce and middle-class housing is just as important in this town. As we see a lot of expensive housing going up, and that's good too, but middle-class housing, housing for folks that are working and taking care of families is as important. And that's why today I wanted to use this site and use the opportunity to bring all of our housing advocates together with developers, with financial people, with the people representing real estate association, property owners and so forth, to come together and talk about the need to fill the void as we've been talking about, where redevelopment is about to be eliminated on February 1st, and where there are constant challenges. In fact, kind of, in my opinion, I have to use the word abandonment, but the end of state-funded programs. The curtailment at the federal level of programs that we could use to create an ongoing source for funding housing, the creation of housing. And I know that our Housing Authority commissioners who are here, our Director Henry Alvarez is here as well, and they'll immediately agree. We're not going to take this lying down. We're not going to become victims, as I've said earlier, that even if they eliminate redevelopment, we're coming back. We're bringing people together. We're coming back with our private enterprises, with our developers, with people who have worked together with us. They know that the promise, the delivery of the promises has never been about a reliance on government programs. That we would fail ourselves and fail our communities if we so inclined to allow ourselves to lie down. That's why I've helped to assemble this group of people behind me. Also people in front of me that are representative in the private sector of people who have been very successful in producing housing. We need everybody to work together. So today, I'm announcing that in light of the idea that we had about forming a housing trust fund, that we begin forming a housing trust fund working group, a working group of people that reflective of all of the talent in our city, from advocates, to developers, to producers, to people who maintain housing stock in the city well. That is the private housing developers and the real estate association, to the business minds of the city, and that I'd like this housing trust fund working group to help me, help our whole city come up with the best ideas possible and afford ourselves with an opportunity to work with our Board of Supervisors, leadership of the board, to amass the best ideas we can and bring it, if need be, to the ballot in November. And so I want this working group to welcome all the best ideas and then to struggle, if you will, with those ideas to make sure that we come out with the most agreeable schedule of ideas that we can present to the voters and to the residents. That one, we're not going to abandon our commitment to this city to build housing for everybody. We're not going to allow ourselves to lie down and say that just because the state and the feds don't find this to be their highest priority, in San Francisco we do. And that as we build training programs for our employees, as we build the technology and the biotech and the green industry to complement our tourism industry for good jobs, that we also are talking about the housing that we need to support our local industry and our local workers. And I think that we need a thrust that this Housing Trust Fund Working Group to have to bring everybody together and say that we could challenge ourselves to come up with the best ideas and to forge alliances that maybe have been in the past only at the affordable housing level or only at the luxury housing level or the market rate housing level, that we can forge an alliance together to build middle-class housing that the city desperately needs. And so I am announcing today this forging. I'm asking Olson Lee, who is the director of our Mayor's Office of Housing, to take the leadership up on this and ask everybody to come together on an agenda. And some of the people that we've asked today to come together here, both in front and behind me, include the housing advocates, the Council on Community Housing Organizations, the Enterprise Community Partners, the Nonprofit Housing Association, Mercy, Bridge, Chinatown Community Development, Tabernacle, who is part of this effort here, the Community Housing Partnerships, Tenderloin Housing, I know Randy's here today, Mission Housing, South of Market, Community Action Group, the Enterprise Community Partners, and then of course the developer family, San Francisco Planning and Urban Research, the Housing Action Coalition, the Emerald Fund that Oz represents. Lennar is here today. I see Kofi here. Thank you for being here. Jackson Pacific Ventures, AGI Capital. As I mentioned earlier, the San Francisco Association of Realtors, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Alliance for Jobs, Tenants Union, coming together to join all of us to make this effort genuinely open for dialogue and for hopefully reaching an agreement again, so that we can house our middle-class families and make sure that we represent everybody and have housing for everyone in the city. With that, I'd like to ask members of our Board of Supervisors to join with me on this. President Chu.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. And I'm really happy that we have represented today really a wonderful spectrum of folks that care about a topic that I think we all have been talking about for quite some time. Mayor Lee referred to the proposals he put out last year on the campaign trail. I can tell you that every candidate last year was talking about the importance of affordable housing. It's time to move beyond talk, though, to figure out what the solutions are, put something on the ballot, and get it done. And so I just want to thank all of my colleagues who are here. I know Supervisor Wiener has been leading and making sure that we remember the importance of workforce housing. Our newest colleague, Supervisor Olagi, has been working with tenants for most of her career here. Supervisor Kim worked for an affordable housing organization. We all have a real commitment to making sure that we're bringing together all the diverse voices. And I know that every constituency who's here wants to make sure that we see housing built at different segments and different parts of the housing need that we have. We have to figure out how we get it all done. And so I know that the mayor's committed to this, and I'm committed to making sure that we're figuring out how everyone can be at the table, how we can all craft solutions that will represent a good step forward in building what San Francisco is going to look like in the 21st century. So thank you for being here. We'll look forward to getting this work done.
Hello. Most of you know me, I think, because we've worked together on all sides of the housing issue. And I just wrote a very brief note that I want to put out there to confirm my commitment to this dialogue and to this working group. So I wanted to say that I'm very excited to be coming to the board as these conversations begin. I look forward to working in collaboration with tenant activists and developers and others who I've worked with in the past and over the past several years to find ways to address the overwhelming need the city has for low and middle income housing. The need is great and immediate, but we cannot begin to find solutions without dialogue. I look forward and I'm committed to being part of that dialogue. Please feel free to stop by my office if you want to have individual conversations so we can go and have a little bit more in-depth talk about this, because sometimes when you get into the working group, it's, that format is a little bit constrained. So I would like to have in-depth conversations with any of those of you here who are open to that. So again, I'm excited to be a part of this.
Thanks, Sunny. Thank you again to all of the variety of members and advocates and developers that are here today. Many of you know that affordable housing has long been one of my top priorities as supervisor, and I was incredibly grateful to hear in Mayor Lee's speech on Sunday that this would be one of his priorities as well. I knew this year that housing would be a big issue when it wasn't just low-income families and individuals that were coming to our offices and writing us emails about how hard it was to continue to live here in San Francisco. When middle-income and even upper-income tenants and residents in the South of Market and the Mission were emailing our office and telling us how tremendously hard it was for them to remain in the city, I knew that this was an issue that we would have to begin to tackle. I'm really excited. Last year ended on a down note with the abolishment of redevelopment, where we lost our only permanent stream for affordable housing here in the state of California. And it's great to be part of a city that's taking a proactive step only a week later to state that we're all going to work together to build housing for everyone here in San Francisco. So I really look forward to this work as well. Working with my colleagues, I know the ones that are standing behind me has also said that housing is a priority for them. We need to make sure that we continue to keep the city diverse and livable for everyone. Thank you.
Reverend Fong and Reverend McCrae were here when we did the groundbreaking for the Mary Ellen Rogers, and they gave a very strong prayer. We're going to need some additional prayers as we bring such a diverse group forward and need your help. So, Reverend Fong, I know that you've been such a committed person, and you and Reverend McCrae have been wonderful, and we ask you to bless us here and also encourage us to do well on this effort. Oh, of course. Supervisor Scott Wiener. Thank you, Scott, for being here. Come on up.
Thank you.
Hey, don't raise it too high now.
I know. Wait, let's pull this out. Here we go. A little tall there. So I'm really excited about what we're doing, and what I want to really stress is the critical importance of focusing on moderate and middle income housing, and making sure it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. We do a lot in this city on affordable housing, and we talk about workforce housing, moderate income housing, middle income housing a lot, and just to be perfectly honest, we don't always put our money where our mouth is. And of course, we need to do more and more on low income housing, but we have, I think in the past, sort of put moderate middle income housing to the side and not really move forward in a substantive way on that. And I, in going through this process, intend to hold our city accountable to making sure that we are actually taking care of our middle income residents and families in this city, because we are in danger of hollowing out our middle class in this city, and we need to prevent that from happening. And so I intend to work very closely with the mayor, with my colleagues, with the Mayor's Office of Housing, to make sure that we are having a housing policy that is inclusive of everyone, and that we continue to have a thriving middle class in San Francisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. And I know that there would be other supervisors that would show up, but for the conflict of interest, we're going to have a majority. But that also signals to you, I think, with this large number of supervisors, there are going to be others that are going to be really supportive of this effort. Thank you very much for being here. I may have been in haste, but I'm going to ask Olson Lee to come up, who is my designated person to head this effort up.
This is a great day. I think my emotions on this day are so different than December 29th. As a former redevelopment employee and going to that website and seeing the Supreme Court decision and saying, what are we going to do in San Francisco? And then coming to this event where the mayor is taking the lead in solving the problem and taking the initiative is just a great, great event. I can't tell you how much my colleagues in the state of California are envious of the city of San Francisco. There is, unfortunately, through the governor's decision, chaos in the affordable housing community throughout California. Developers and both market rate and affordable housing developers have talked to me about what San Francisco is doing to, one, an orderly transition of redevelopment to the city, protecting the affordable housing assets that are currently at redevelopment, continuing the work of redevelopment like this project. This project is a redevelopment project which would not be funded without tax increment. And that tax increment, as the controller reminded me, provided $40 million a year towards affordable housing. And one of his questions to me was, well, Olson, what are you going to do now? Well, I think we have the answer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for taking the leadership on this, because we now are going forward and trying to create this housing trust fund. We don't have a lot of specifics on the housing trust fund at this point. That's why we have a working group. We're going to look at all the possible resources that may go into a housing trust fund and look at sort of the best ideas of other housing trust funds in the country. And we will also look at how we're going to use this in a San Francisco way. The federal government created a housing trust fund and never funded it. The state government has had a housing trust fund program that has been really sort of middling, fair to middling to say the best. We are going to create a housing trust fund in San Francisco that once again shows that San Francisco is the leader in affordable housing development and finance. And I really appreciate the mayor giving me this responsibility to work with all of you, both in front of me and behind me, to shepherd this effort through. The mayor clearly believes in the big tent. And this is probably the size of the first working group meeting. And we will look and receive all sorts of ideas because I think we really truly want to take this opportunity, because it is going to be a permanent source. It's not just a 1 year or 2 year program. This is a permanent program, and we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right. And so again, I want to thank the mayor for this opportunity to lead this effort.
All right, brother. All right. Okay, this one's for Mayor Lee. It's not it's more of a charge, but it's more an illustration too. Time magazine said 2011 was the year of the protester, right? I want 2012 to be the year of collaboration and getting it done. This is new. This is different. We're talking about the Super Bowl of life. We're in the playoffs already, right? The Super Bowl of life. We need offense, defense. We need protesters, advocates, a business community, religious leaders. We can't just pray about it. We got to put, like someone said, our money where our mouth is. We need San Francisco to pull together all segments to deal with the Super Bowl of life issue, which is housing. Why were people protesting last year? There's no housing. We got to do something. The state left us behind. The feds did too. But San Francisco is going to find a way, and I think I want to give a big hand to the coach, the quarterback, Mayor Lee, who called the play. We're calling the play now, right? We got to go for it. So we got a plan for this year. San Francisco, we want to score for affordable and a moderate rate housing. Thank you. And this is a beautiful illustration of that. And the one and only Reverend Dr. McCrae, a brother, an advocate. I know he can do a blessing or something better than I could.
The mayor used the word promise. For many in the religious community, we live with a promise. The promise is that the cities will be repaired and the former devastations will be reversed. The mayor said we come together because of a promise. I stand with Brother Rogers. His mother fought years and years in this community for the promise. This project took many, many years, many, many iterations. Did it not, brother? Did it not? Mission housing, did it not? It took the whole community working together because we believed in the promise that San Francisco will be repaired. San Francisco will go into the future, and San Francisco will remain the model city for all of these United States. Mayor Lee, thank you, because you gave us a promise last Sunday afternoon that this was going to be an item, and before I could almost get home, the item is coming to fruition because we are taking the first step. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, San Francisco. And as I say all of the time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. And I know we're on the verge of a very memorable and promise-filled weekend, the Martin Luther King weekend as well, where we renew those promises all the time. But now in San Francisco, it's also about delivering on those promises. And I know Oz Erickson's been delivering on a lot of stuff, not only for his investor, but also things that have been working with everybody to produce housing. So Oz, come on up.
Thanks. On Sunday, the mayor talked about the really important things in San Francisco, and he said, jobs, jobs, jobs. It's great to read in the paper about Salesforce leasing 400,000 square feet. It's great to read about them leasing 2 million square feet. 400,000 square feet translates into 1,000 units of needed needed housing. 2 million square feet is 5,000 units of housing. We have an incredibly difficult problem supplying housing. We need 20,000 units of housing over the next 10 years, at a minimum, more like 30 with the growth in jobs if the mayor has his way. This is a very, very urgent, needed process, and I'm very optimistic that we will all be able to work together and come up with a program that will deliver housing and affordable housing for San Francisco.
Well, let me reiterate by closing that, there is no prescribed solution going into this process. We have to be open to everybody's input. And so I make that commitment that we are going to open ourselves up. There is nothing to say that any idea coming forward can't be a good one, but also be integrated with everybody else's idea. So I want to signal that to everyone who's going to participate and watch as this effort continues. But at the end of the day, we have to act, and we have to get an agreement, and we have to produce housing that is affordable to all incomes in San Francisco. We must do that, and we must honor an opportunity that I think the voters are giving all of us, that we got to come up with the solutions, and we got to come up with it quickly in a timely fashion. So with that, I charge Olson, and I charge everybody here today, put your best effort forward, be honest, be deliberative, be collaborative, as Reverend Fong says. Let's get to work and let's get it done. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.